Okay, today we're going to work with Excel, and we're going to start off by downloading an Excel spreadsheet from the CDC website. So I'm clicking the link, it takes me to this portion of the CDC website that says provisional COVID-19 deaths by sex and by age. We're going to go ahead and export this for Excel. And if you don't see it downloaded over here, or if you can't double click on it right here, you'll just have to go to the folder and look for it in your downloads. And there you'll see it. And notice it's CSV, so by default it is not an Excel type file, even though it looks like it is. It's opened in Excel, but it's a CSV. So we need to do a file save as, and we can kill two birds with one stone here. We'll save it into your OneDrive. If for some reason your District 11 OneDrive isn't working, you could try it this way. Double click here, and sometimes that makes it show up for you guys. If it still doesn't show up with the hyphen, Colorado Springs D11, then just temporarily what you can do is just go to to Documents, and it'll save it temporarily then in your documents on that computer. Yet we've been having some troubles lately with computers synchronizing with OneDrive, so that's no worries. You can do that temporarily and then upload it after we're all finished. Alright, so I'll hit save. I'm going to put it there. Oops, I forgot to call it COVID data, except I'm going to change this to the 13th. It's today's lesson. Alright, let's see here. The first thing I want to show you is how large this database is. And so I'm going to hold down my control key and hit the end key, and that takes us to the very end of the document. And you'll notice it brings us down to 66,097 rows down. Pretty big, right? I mean, rather than scrolling down or scrolling up, you can hold down your control key and now hit the home key, and it brings you back home. You can also hit control, hold down down arrow, and the down arrow brings you down, whereas when I hit the end key, control end, then notice it puts my cursor over here. So if this was more than the O, if it went all the way out, maybe a couple hundred columns out, it would go all the way out to the furthest right and the furthest down. That's what the end key does. So I hit control home. If I hit control down arrow, simply brings me straight down. I can go back up arrow. I can hold down control, hit right arrow. Brings me over to the furthest right without scrolling down. Okay. So get used to hitting control home, and that's true in just about all applications. It brings you back to the upper left corner of the document. All right, now we don't need these columns, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of them. I'm going to hold down. I need to be up where the letters are. Put my cursor up here where I have a down facing arrow, and then I can select the entire column. In fact, it goes all the way down 66,000. It's highlighting all the way down. So I right mouse, I click, drag to select both at once. I right mouse click, and I hit delete. All right, now I'm going to double click. Notice some of these are too small, so you couldn't read all the data. And if that happens with a number, watch if I scroll these and see how they turn to a pound sign. So no worries, the pound sign just tells us that it's too narrow, the column can't fit the number. So what I like to do is then highlight all of the cells and double click, and then it auto fits. Now this one's really big over here, so I'm not gonna, well, I guess I do want to see that. Uh-oh, Control Z, I'm gonna undo that. I didn't mean to make them all that large. If you drag and then let go instead of double click, it makes all of them the same width as whichever one you were dragging on. That's if they're all highlighted like I had. Alright, so now when I scroll down, notice I lose the header row. We want to keep that header row on the screen. So there's two ways to do this. One would be to click that header row where you want it to freeze. Then you go to the View, Freeze Panes, and I could say Freeze, Keep Row Visible, but now let's say I'm not selected over here, I'm just selected here. This will still work if I just choose this freeze top row, because that's the most common, so they made a separate option for that. But if I were to put my cursor, let's say I wanted to keep the dates visible, and let's say the state's visible, and the sex and age, but right here I wanted to start scrolling right there. Then I could go to freeze panes, and I would, let's see, first I have to unfreeze, and then I can go to this, freeze panes, and now watch when I go down and I go to the right, see how it keeps the top and to the left, so above and to the left of wherever my cursor was sitting when I chose that option. So I'm going to unfreeze, and I'm just going to choose first row, top row. All right, so that's what I want you guys to do. So go ahead and pause, do everything I just did. If you haven't so far, pause the video, open this guy up, save it, and get caught up to where I am right now, and then you can restart it. Okay, so we don't need this column either, date as of. That's the date they posted it to their website, 9/8. But they tell us here the date is good up through 9/4. So they pretty much give us a start date, end date, that all of this data that they're providing for us. So this is just extra data that we don't need. I'll do a right mouse click, delete that row, or that column. And all right, now let's start looking at the data. So from the beginning of COVID, when we started counting, when the COVID hit us and we started counting deaths, until present, this past week, all sexes, all ages, here's the total death count so far, 643,000 approximately. And then now they start breaking it down by category, by ages. So if you take a look here, under 1 it's 98, from 0 to 17, 412. But you notice this category includes the under 1. So I'm going to just keep this category. And I'm going to go ahead and right mouse click on row 3. And I'm going to hide it this time, because what if I want to see that data later? Instead of deleting it, I'm just going to hit hide. And so now you can see it goes from 1, 2, and then 3 is hidden, and 4. So if I ever want to unhide that data, I just highlight the 2 rows around it, and then right mouse click, and then I can choose unhide, and it brings it back. So I'm going to do a Control Z, put that back to a hidden, and then I'm going to hide any extra data that's within the 0 to 17. So we get 1 to 4, 5 to 14. So 5 to, oh, and here's the next category starting. So from 0 to 17, then 18 to 29. So these are all extras. Notice it's broken out. Actually, this is pretty interesting, actually. If you take a look from 0 to 17, well, here, let me first highlight these 3 rows. Okay, let's get rid of these. Hide. Okay, so looking at 0 to 17, there's something really interesting about this. So there were 412 total deaths in the United States for all people under 18 years old. Pneumonia deaths were 924. So actually more. In years past, it's way higher than 14 for this number. Or wait, influenza, sorry, this number. Influenza deaths. So these are unusually low. Back in 2016-17 influenza season, because it's usually over the winter, so it's 16-17, that season, we typically have a total deaths for everyone in the United States between 30 and 40,000. I think in 16-17 we had an unusually high number, and it was like between 70 and 80,000 deaths from influenza. And so the fact that these numbers are so low, I don't know, that's surprising. I'm not sure if some of them are being counted in here. I'm not sure, but I don't know. But they're very low compared to normal years. But anyway, looking at your age group, what you guys fall in would be this group. It's just interesting to note that pneumonia deaths were higher than the COVID deaths. Then we look at ages 18 to 29. Also, pneumonia deaths are higher than COVID deaths. So now let's go here. So just like you guys have heard in the news and in media that this affects the elderly more than it does the younger. Because when you go down here and look at the elderly. But here's the problem with this database, as I already started to show you, is there's too many overlapping numbers. So from 18 to 29, I want to go to the next one that says from 30. Okay, good. So I'm going to get rid of this. Do a hide. And I want you guys to do this. Hide anything that's duplicates. So from 29 to 30, 30 to 39, 30, see that's duplicates of 40 to 49. They're trying to just give us different age ranges, but it duplicates the death count. Oops, instead of hiding that, I deleted it. So I'm going to hit a Control-Z to undo. And I'm going to, right mouse click on it, and let's do a hide. And from 40 to 49, then this is the next one I want, so I want to hide this one. So I'm just looking from 29 to 30, 39 to 40, 49 to 50, 64 to 65. So I need to hide this guy. 64 to 65, 74 to 75. Okay, look, now they're not overlapping when you get up into the elderly years. So it looks like here's where the numbers are significant, are the most. And that would be 50 years and older. And it's much less of a threat to the youth. Where it looks like pneumonia is pretty comparable. All right, let's go to, now, also wanted to show you that they categorize by male and by female. So you can look at males, and it has the exact same age groups they show. And then they show by female, and you feel free to look at that. Let's just look at one thing from the United States. Total males that have died of COVID, 353,800, or 8, yeah. And then total females, 290,000. Oops, I'm sorry, I keep scrolling. Here we go. So it's this one compared to this one if it's all males versus females. But anyway, it's just an interesting database for you guys to look at. And we're trying to manipulate the data using Excel to make it a little more readable and understand it. Now, what I want you guys to do is exactly what I did. Come up with this data. Do what I just did for the United States, but then I want you guys to do the same thing that I just did for Colorado. So I'll get you started on that. Let's scroll down. I'm going to hit my page down on my keyboard. Page down jumps me down faster than just scrolling with my scroll ball. If I just hold it down for a little while, oops, I held it down and it scrolled a little too fast. All right, so now I'm at Colorado. Now I'm using my mouse scroll ball to slow it down. So I'm going to grab these rows and highlight them all the way down. I'm just going to go ahead and get all Colorado. There we go. We don't want Connecticut, just Colorado. Now right mouse click. Let's copy this, and we're going to paste it in a new sheet. I'm going to double click this sheet and call it Colorado. And then what I'd like you all to do, go ahead and paste it. Control V to paste. But now we need a header row. So let's go back and let's grab that header row. So I'm going to click on highlight row 1, copy it, and notice, let's just deselect all of this. Right mouse click on row 1 and notice how it says insert copied cells. Watch what happens. It didn't delete that first row, it inserted it. So it gave us a new row, which is nice. So in Colorado, all ages, we've had 7,537 deaths. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight these, double click, so I can read all of the headers. Okay, 7,500, and pneumonia deaths 6,900. So pretty close. Now what I want you guys to do, I'm going to go ahead and pause my video, and I want you all to delete the additional data. Or, sorry, you can either hide or delete. I'm fine if you want to delete it, that's fine. But let's get it to where there's no overlapping years. So from 17 to this one, to 18 to 29, keep that one visible, keep this one visible, and so forth. All right, I'll pause it and let you do that. All right, so I just finished mine. And one thing I wanted to point out, I think you guys would find interesting, is your age groups. It says 0 to 17, there were 13 deaths in Colorado. But I think I'm going to unhide this because I want to see which category. Okay, from 1 to 4, 0, from 5 to 14, 0. So from 15 to 24, that's where some of that 13 is. So basically, anyone in Colorado under the age of 15 has not died from COVID. I find that interesting. Or from pneumonia, because pneumonia tends to affect older people more, much like the COVID. Influenza deaths. I also find this interesting. years past, typically young kids die of influenza. Not as much as elderly. Elderly is more, but the fact that we have none, I find that interesting. I'm trying to figure that one out also. But anyway, it's just interesting to go look at the numbers that the CDC puts out, and I wanted you guys to, it's a fun way to use Excel and manipulate Excel. So that's it for today. You guys can, to clean mine up, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of, I'm just going to hide these age groups. So, the genders, and it makes it real easy then to get less distracted, and then we just have all the data right here. All right, that's it. You guys can hit save and then go back and submit this to my Schoology page.